Heyo YouTube, Flowcat here, and today I just want to talk about Xinyan. I think that she is one of the most underrated units in Genshin Impact. Why? Well, that's what this video is about. I'm here to talk about her kit, what I think are common misconceptions about her kit, and some advice on how to build Xinyan from someone who has built her and is extremely happy with her performance. This is my Xinyan. So I have a couple different things to show you. This is the Xinyan that I choose to use in my team, right? So we have, you'll notice, no crit rate, crit damage, a little bit of ER, and this is her attack and defense stat. This is a specific build that I've done for my Xinyan because the first thing that I will say, the first misconception that I want to address is the misconception that she's just a bad unit overall because she requires too many stats to like build up to be effective. Her split scaling is too severe, a lot of people say. Well, the first thing that I want to bring up is that her build is very flexible and you need to build your Xinyan based on the team that you have her in. So you may be wondering, how am I getting by with 120% ER? It's because I have my Xinyan in a team with Raiden Shogun. So let me jump to the team building screen. Essentially what I've done here is I put Shogun in for Superconduct and to nullify energy requirements. We have Rosaria for her C6 with extra Fizz Shred, as well as being a really good cryo enabler. And a burst DPS, you know, like sub DPS. We have Xinyan for shielding, burst DPS potential with the Fizz damage, and even more Fizz Shred. And then, wouldn't you believe it, we have Fizz Chi-Chi driver. Yes, so my Chi-Chi, just to show the whole point of this team, my Chi-Chi is running Clam, and I don't even have a good Sands on her, so keep that in mind. But without a good Sands, I'm able to mostly max out the Clam damage. So my Chi-Chi stays on field when my Shogun's burst is down to slap enemies, heal, and to do physical damage, which is enabled by Xinyan and Rosaria. You get the protection from Xinyan. And then when all these three bursts are down, I use Shogun's burst to restart the rotation, to fill up everyone's burst. Xinyan provides really great shielding and Chi-Chi provides really great healing. So this team is incredibly tanky. I almost never have to worry about dying. On top of that, Xinyan brings more than just shielding to the team because if you notice, I have a heavily invested attack stat. Basically, I took all of the stats that I would have invested in energy recharge to have a stable burst, and I put them into attack using an attack scaling weapon. Let me do a quick test before we go any further, just to show you what my Xinyan can do. I think I want to try this one more time where I start with all the bursts charged. So let me go do that real quick. As you can see, my Xinyan is doing about 70,000 physical damage, and the shielding is pretty reliable. You saw that the shield stayed up throughout the fight as long as the duration was up. And yeah, pretty much the only thing that kind of hindered my team was the fact that Masanori didn't want to phase change. He was like in the middle of an attack pattern, and so my shield ran out pretty much just because Masanori stalled, but it didn't really matter. Anyway, you can see the potential of this team for having solid burst damage between Raiden Shogun and Xinyan, and then you have very stable physical damage output with Chi-Chi, as well as using Rosaria as a good, stable burst DPS as well. Now, this is a pretty unique team, and I understand that not everyone is going to want to run this team, but I just wanted to show that as an example of how you can optimize your Xinyan to give really good shielding, really good attack, and then just make up for the energy recharge problem with Raiden Shogun. That's not the only option though. And I did want to show one other option. Let's say you don't want to run with Raiden Shogun, right? Or you don't have a Wolf's Gravestone. I think that Sacrificial Greatsword is fantastic for her. So using the same build that I'm using right now, which we will get into soon, let me show you the updated stats. We have 150 ER, not bad, not bad. Still a high attack build. Let's see how much energy I can get back from her skill now. And now you can see that with the Sacrificial Sword, she can self-battery really effectively. I know it was kind of a waste of a shield refresh because I just kind of refreshed right away. But that being said, you will be able to battery her with just 2 casts of her skill. Pretty nice. 150 ER is not that hard to build either. This is without using an energy recharge sand. Now I want to get into the core of this video, like how to build your Xinyan. I see a lot of people talking about how she's not an effective unit. So I've shown you the damage for my Xinyan, but I haven't shown you how much shielding I'm getting, which is pretty important because a lot of people say that she doesn't provide a lot of shielding. So I have 1,928 defense. Oops. Okay, so I have 1,928 defense. At level 12, her shield provides 288% defense plus 1,073. So let's multiply that. As you can tell from some quick math, my Xinyan provides 7,325 shield per cast. Now, what really makes Xinyan, or makes or breaks her in my opinion, is C2. Building Xinyan before C2 is really challenging. Why? Because C2 increases the crit rate of her physical damage from her burst to 100%, and it will form a shield at level 3 when cast. So essentially with C2, you're getting 100% crit rate on your damage from your burst, your main source of damage, and I can now multiply the amount of shielding I get by 2, leaving us with 14,651 shielding per rotation. This is per rotation because you can do this every single rotation. That is actually quite a lot of shielding. Like, that's not anything to scoff at, to be honest. If I'm not wrong, Tank Faye provides rather similar shielding, if not maybe a little less. I haven't built up a Tank Faye, but I kind of wanted to contrast against a relevant Pyro Shielder. And Toma is not necessarily the same kind of shielder that Xinyan is, where Toma refreshes shield constantly. It's just hard to compare with Xinyan. Tank Faye is easier to compare to Xinyan because she requires constellations to become effective. It's burst dependent, high energy requirements. And one other thing about Tank Faye is that she really doesn't provide any damage to your team whatsoever. Now, keep in mind that you guys saw me hitting 70k. on Masanori, I'm doing 70,000 damage per rotation, plus or minus a little bit of overload damage. And occasionally, because I do have cryo resonance in my team, I will melt for like 20,000 damage on her skill, which is just kind of random, but you know, 70 to 90,000 damage per rotation plus a 14,000 hit point shield is actually really good for me. And also, because I'm running her with a healer in the team, Chi-Chi, it doesn't matter to me that this value is only split in half. It doesn't bother me that I get this in 7,000 HP chunks. If I were to get hit by a massive strike, it would block a large chunk of the health, and then I could simply heal whatever gets through my shield or recast the shield and just get another shield. I find that the ability for her to provide shields at different points during the rotation is kind of nice, to be honest. I've shown the potential of my Xinyan. She gives me nearly 15,000 shield, 70,000 damage. Fantastic, good, good, good. Make sure that you have C2 or else she's insanely hard to build. And now, we're gonna talk about the build. I have my Xinyan on a 2-piece Pale Flame and a 2-piece Husk set. This is what I prefer to run on my Xinyan because I'm running her in sort of like a team where I want her to provide a good amount of shielding, but also do good damage. So I didn't go into max damage. I kind of went into a hybrid build of shielding and damage, which worked out really well for me. I think 70k damage is really respectable considering I also get a chunky shield. But this is where I really want to focus on Xinyan and how you should be building her. You can do a variety of things based on what you would like your Xinyan to do. I could do 2-piece Pale Flame, 2-piece Bloodstain for max damage, kind of like if I don't really care so much about the shielding, if I'm running really tanky units or something, or a really good healer, and I just want to maximize for raw damage, I would swap this out for a Bloodstain 2-piece. If you want to maximize her ER and her shielding, I could swap this out for an Emblem 2-piece to give you a little bit of energy recharge. And one thing that I've seen people do is run a 2-piece Noblesse on their Xinyan. And while it does boost her burst damage, which is the main source of her damage, I think that because the physical damage scales a little higher with a physical damage bonus, it's just better to run a Pale Flame. If you don't have good Pale Flame pieces and you don't want to farm the domain, you don't want to farm any Bloodstain stuff, if you just have really good Noblesse, you know, obviously the substats can make a difference. But overall, I would recommend Pale Flame, Bloodstain as your damage dealing sets, and then Emblem and Husk for your more supportive 2 pieces. This is what's really great about Xinyan, is she requires no 4-piece set to function. She can function purely off of 2-piece sets, which allows you to hunt for the substats that you need, which we are going to discuss now. I'm going to try to find a perfect piece here if I have one. Okay, this is probably the most perfect piece that I have for my Xinyan, and I want to discuss why it's perfect. People I will often see when they're trying out Xinyan for the first time, even if they have C2, they will still build in crit rate. You do not need to do that with Xinyan. The only stats that you need for your Xinyan are crit damage, attack percent, defense percent, and energy recharge. So if I were to get a piece with attack percent, defense percent, crit, imagine that this is just like a flower or something, right? And then this was crit damage. This would be absolutely perfect. Now, obviously it's a crit damage hat, so I have like a flat attack here, which is kind of whatever, because at this point, this stat right here doesn't really matter. Like if it were crit rate, it would do absolutely nothing for me. And that's the thing that I see people do, is they actually put crit rate into their Xinyan build, which destroys your ability to build up her stats to a respectable level, because you're trying to build too many stats at the same time. Now I run her on a defense Sans for extra shielding, and I run her on a physical damage bonus for obvious reasons. I would always recommend running a physical damage bonus cup, always. And I would always recommend running a crit damage hat. The Sans is what you have a choice with. You can run defense percent, attack percent, or energy recharge. As I mentioned before, those are the only stats you need other than crit damage. So I chose defense because I wanted a chunkier shield, and also because I'm running with Wolf's Gravestone. I'm already hitting diminishing returns on my attack stat. If you notice, my attack stat is 2300, which is kind of large for a 4-star, meaning that I'm hitting diminishing returns on my attack percent scaling. So I decided to focus into defense. Again, doing that hybrid build, focusing on damage and shielding, worked out very well for me. And but with the couple energy recharge rolls I have, having that 20% ER, it's just plenty. It's plenty. I don't need anything else. You'll notice that I could even get better pieces. Like I could get more ER into my build if I were to get better pieces. And yeah, like this is a flat defense roll. So like that's not the best. It could have gone into one of these, like these pieces aren't perfect. That's what I'm trying to get at here. You got some flat HP here. These pieces could be a lot better. I could even have more crit damage if like this had rolled into crit damage. Either way, point being is that she takes artifacts that a lot of other units are not going to use because of the split scaling. Like if you get a piece with attack, defense, crit damage, like maybe Ito, but like Xinyan can take those pieces and not many other people will. That's one thing that I wanted to bring into this, is that there's almost no reason for you to avoid building Xinyan. Like if you were to get like this piece right here, I got this piece and I realized that the only person that can use this other than maybe my Yunjin is Xinyan, and it's way better on Xinyan than it is anyone else. So I just gave it to her. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these pieces, who's going to use this goblet? Who? No one. So Xinyan gets it. Who's going to use this? Maybe Ito or, I don't know, probably no one except Xinyan. Same with a lot of these pieces. You wouldn't really want to give this to anyone or this to anyone, but on Xinyan, it becomes a fantastic piece, which is how I achieved the build that I have. So yeah, this was just a video showcasing the potential of my Xinyan and showing just honestly not a super high invested build, but like a decently invested build, and showing you a couple different options of what you can do with building her, stuff like that, you know, blah, 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 blah. I see a lot of people say that she's not worth building, but there's also a lot of people who could benefit from having her built and in their account. Now, I will admit that Xinyan does not have a ton of team builds right now. She doesn't have a bunch of different teams that she fits in, but I think that a lot of people could actually benefit from having her in the teams. Like if you're running Hu Tao with Yanfei, Yanfei is not doing that much damage, if any damage, and she's not really providing much for your Hu Tao other than the pyro application and the shield, which Xinyan can do while adding damage. And I just find it funny that people rag on her kit so much. We have units like Diona that literally only provide shielding, stamina consumption reduction, and healing outside of her C6, which provides the EM boost. And people love Diona. I mean, I love using Diona. You know what I mean? I just think that Xinyan has been underrated for a long time. She applies a ton of pyro. She can do really good burst damage, and she provides a chonky shield, despite what people say, if you build her correctly. If you're holding on to a Xinyan, you got a sacrificial greatsword, you got some pieces, you know, maybe just build her up. Maybe just do it. I think that Dendro will help her out a lot. I think that Dendro will improve her usefulness. Like I mentioned, she applies a lot of pyro, and that pyro application can be really useful because she does it quickly, and she does some of it from off field. Anyway, that's gonna bring us to the end of this video. I rambled on forever, and I feel so bad for my editor because I just looked at the timer and I've been recording for 30 minutes. It's been a half hour. Woo-wee. All right. So anyway, I've got a Discord. If you want to join a friendly Genshin community, I will have the link pinned in a comment with the Patreon shout out. It's also in the description of every video. And if you wouldn't mind dropping me a subscribe and also maybe putting a like on the video, that would help me out a bunch. Thank you very much. And as always, stay healthy, stay hydrated. Peace, everybody.